Patrick, welcome to the program. How are you?
Fantastic. Fantastic. How you doing?
I am living the dream. Thanks for asking. I am really excited to hear your story because you are in the trades, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, what I call the, big three, the trifecta, which is really kind of nice because it balances things out. It's great when you can do all the majors in a home
Yeah.
instead of just one. Especially when you need to cross over because sometimes an HVAC company will really need a plumber or electrical work, and they just don't have exactly what they need. So I want to talk to you about that. And also, I'm really intrigued because you've done such a great job to scale a business in home service, but you didn't come from that world. So if you don't mind, I'd like to start when you were a little younger and tell me all about how you got to where you are today. So where were you 15 years ago?
15 years ago, I was in the dry cleaning industry.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. An industry I never thought I'd be involved in.
Well, how'd you get into that?
I had a cousin who does equipment lease financing, specializing in that market. Ended up buying a cleaners, asked me to come help him run it. I said, okay. Then shortly after, he decided he was going to sell it. I relocated to California for that. And so I was like, well, what am I going to do now? So I started a pickup and delivery route and started looking for my own plant, found one, bought it, and went to town.
Yeah, I've known people, and this is in previous decades, right? This was a while ago, who did very well in the dry cleaning business. It's a business that, or at least was, very predictable. Same thing over and over again. You get repeat business. If you have a number of different units, locations, it can be quite profitable, right?
Yeah, it can be. One of one of the things I, as now in business here, I tell everybody in the office, I said I hate casual Fridays because
Yes.
that impacts the dry cleaning industry, right? And I hate the invention of polyester because that impacted the dry cleaning industry. Um, but it can be very, very lucrative business.
Yeah. The business was probably really booming in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s even. I remember when I was a younger man, I used to wear suits for a living. I worked for large companies and I had to dress well, and it was the dry cleaner thing on a regular basis. And I can't tell you the last time I walked into a dry cleaner or had something dry cleaned.
Yeah, yeah. It's changed obviously with the textile development, right? A lot of wrinkle free and things like that, and then also with just us as our culture, it has changed to
Hmm.
being a little bit more casual, not so much suit and tie, and if you had a dry cleaners and you were in especially a city, that's where you used to see 99-cent shirts and a
Yeah.
little bit more now, but the shirts was kind of the loss leader for the dry cleaning industry. Bring us your shirts, and hopefully you'll bring us your ties and slacks and jackets and everything else.
So you're in California. Where are you from originally?
Philadelphia.
Philly. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm from the East Coast. I was born in New York, Manhattan, and
Okay.
and my mom's family's from Philly. So oh, and my son lives in Philly now. So there you go.
It's a great
I
city.
knew you were from the East Coast. I wasn't sure though. I was going to say maybe New York or New Jersey, but Philly, yeah, you fit right in there. That's exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Fantastic. So you were in dry cleaning. I understand you had to make an exit, and you ended up in the HVAC world. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I kind of I knew I liked working on equipment. I learned to work on some of my own equipment, boilers and presses and things, because otherwise you had to bring somebody in from LA. It was very expensive.
Mm.
And so my goal was to get into service and sales of dry cleaning equipment. And of course, the economy going south in 2008 and whatnot, cleaners were closing. And they certainly weren't opening new ones, and they weren't replacing equipment. So I actually started going to school at night for refrigeration because dry cleaning machines had refrigeration units on them, and I knew nothing about refrigeration. So I started going to school with the idea that I'll go to school while this is working out, and I happened to answer an ad on Craigslist for general air and heating, which was the name, General Air Conditioning and Heating back then. And this was in 2009, like November. It was for an entry level maintenance tech. So I went, answered it, was hired. But I walked into the building I'm in now. And the goal was, and I had it written down on a napkin. One night I wrote it out. It was to put 5 years in to get enough experience to get my license and start my own business. Never really knew that the business that I was walking into was a business I was going to buy. And I think to me, it's proof of the concept of writing your goals down, putting things out to the universe, and kind of attracting what you want. But I showed up there as a maintenance tech, started January and 2010, and August 2010, the owner, Frank Harrison, came to me and asked me to be a service manager. I didn't know a whole lot about air conditioning in 8 months. There's a lot to learn still, but I had business and management experience. And so he saw that and the opportunity was there. So I took it, and then I became ops manager and then general manager, and ended up buying this business in 2018.
Yeah, the law of attraction. You put yourself out there, and you were in the right place at the right time, but you were doing the right things. You were a likely candidate to take the business over. And it's amazing how these things work, but you work hard, position yourself, and things can come to you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things that really, really helped me was, some of the advice my father had given me back in the day. And he would tell me, he says, if you're going to take a paycheck from another person and you're going to go to work for them, you show up every day like you own the business.
Yeah.
Right. You take ownership. And I did. And there was days I started beating the owner here to work in the morning. And he didn't like that because he liked to be the first one here. But I stood out. I kept Armor All in my truck. So every morning I'd park around the corner. I'd do my tires, shine them up. And those were the things that stood out.
Standing out is critical, especially when there's other people who can do what you do, and you wanted to stick out amongst your peers. The same thing's true in business. How do you stick out as far as a home service company from the competitors in your marketplace?
Well, it's getting harder and harder to do, it seems like, right? It's a very crowded space. There's a low cost of entry to get into it. And so you have to, one, obviously just marketing, make sure people know you're out there. For us, it's how we do that really is we're heavily involved in the community. So people just don't see us as a, air conditioning, plumbing, electrical contractor. They actually see us out there interacting with the community, doing things, being on boards, and just really integrating into the community you serve. But and then beyond that, it's getting that reputation of standing behind what you do. To really, when you show up, we tell our team, like, make a difference in the client's life. Right. And for a while, people would look at me like, well, all I do is this, or all I do is that. How am I going to make a difference? I'm like, the words you say to somebody, the interaction you have with somebody from the time you go into the house to the time you leave the home could have a major impact on somebody. And I said, you have no knowledge of what's going on in somebody's life and how just the kind words and the things like that have those impact.
It's true. We've all heard this. People buy from people they know, like, and trust. So I say it like that.
Yeah.
People buy from people unless they're buying from a vending machine or Amazon. But people really like to buy from people. They don't like to be sold much. They want to buy from you. And they really would like to like you and trust you, respect you. And that's the key because you're in a commodity type business. I talk to contractors all the time, and they will often say, we have the best technicians. We have the best products. We have the best service, the best warranty. If I had $1 for every contractor that told me, I'd be a billionaire, right? So that's fine, train technicians and so forth. But it's that extra thing that the community sees, that your customer sees, that gets them to call you.
Yeah, very much so. And And it's kind of like when I see a company that has a core value of integrity. I'm like, to me, that's just I hope you have integrity,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so again, I hope you have the best technicians. I hope you're on time. And so those things, and there was a time maybe they stood out a little bit, but now, especially in today's age, people expect a minimum level of service in certain areas. I mean, heck, even the cable companies were known for showing up in an 8-hour window have gotten it down to where they're giving you a more specific time because if they're even mimicking some of the basic concepts. So you really have got to find ways to stand out and rise above.
Absolutely. You are running a very good size home services company in terms of volume. Um, Not the biggest, but not near the smallest. So I consider it a good size company. How have you been able to do that in the environment today? What are the secrets? Because there's many people watching and listening to this who are doing 800,000 a year, 1.8 million, and you're doing substantially more than that. What have you done and how can they get there?
Well, one of the key components, I believe, for anybody that's leading an organization, they have to have a very clear vision. A very clear vision. If you come into this organization, you ask any one of our team members, um, why does Patrick want to grow to 100 million? And they'll say, because he wants a jet, right?
Mhm.
Because I tell them, like, that's my vision. And why? Just because there's certain things in my personal life, my spiritual life, family, business that I have these milestones that I'm looking for that signify success. And if a business can afford a jet, right, or if an individual can afford a jet, most likely reached a certain level of success in business. But then I go on to paint the vision of why we want to get there beyond that and why everybody benefits and how they benefit and how they can be a part of it. And I think it's one of the most important things I do is have a clear vision and communicate that vision clearly. And there's a lot of business owners that I come across who they don't they, they don't they have a vision to be where they're at, right? They don't
Mhm.
they just kind of, oh, yeah, I guess, like you've got to have your belief lid has to expand. And sometimes I think a lot of people get stuck in their mindset as to where they are and what's possible. Well, once you can raise that, then share that vision and communicate it. And then the number two thing is the people, right? I mean, one of my biggest struggles in becoming the CEO is realizing I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. I need to surround myself with the right people. I have to have a team that is as dedicated and as committed as me. And man, once you get that vision and you attract people with the vision and you get them on the team and you stay out of their way, it's amazing what can happen. I tell people I'm like, when if you ever go to the bowling alley and little kids are bowling, they put those guards down so
Yep.
the ball
Mhm.
doesn't go in the gutter. I tell them my job, I'm the gutter guard, right? You
Yeah.
guys score strikes. I'm going to keep you out of the gutter. That's my goal. That's my focus.
I like that. The gutter guard. Yeah. Patrick, would you say that you're a better technician or a better business owner slash visionary?
Business owner, visionary.
Mhm. Good, because that's what you do most of the time. You don't turn wrenches anymore, do you?
I don't, and I didn't turn them for very long. When I was out there, when I was out in the field, I took my truck, my service truck, and I ran it like it was my own business. Right. So I was looking at how can I be most profitable? What's the most
Mhm.
efficient way to get here? What am I doing a day in revenue? And how do I generate more? I had my goals down, but it was kind of like a little micro business. And because that's how my mind works. That's how I think. So uh Yeah, but I love the trades. I absolutely love the trades. My son graduated from a really good college prep Jesuit school and is now graduated high school and came here and is working in the plumbing department. And nothing could make me prouder.
Fantastic. The trades are a great place to be.
Oh yeah,
Everybody needs their plumbing looked after, their electrical, their HVAC, and it's always going to be a business overall, an industry, home service, especially for I think the big three. The trifecta I call them, right? The big three.
yeah.
Um, because plumbing it has to work and people will get it fixed. Electric has to work and HVAC has to work. You could do without some other things. You don't have to have a swimming pool installed. That's, for the home, but certainly a luxury. Let's get a little personal here. Do you have any regrets? And if so, what's your biggest regret in your life?
Like the one that comes to mind right away is not getting in the trade sooner. I got in the trades. I'm 50. I'll be 53 in January. 52 now, and I was like, why didn't I go into the trades right out of high school?
Mhm.
Um, but with that said, I try not to really have regrets. But I mean, you have them, but at the same time, it's just, man, I can't. On the other hand, this is how I look at things. Well, I regret that I didn't get into trade sooner. I think the success I'm having is because everything I did to get to where I was started in the trades prepared me. Being in dry cleaning and buying a business, selling a business on my own, dealing with the EPA, they came and drilled out in front of our place to look for perchloroethylene contamination, dealing with all of that. Man, that was like the most advanced MBA uh, course I could ever take. And it's that, and I went through a lot of different styles of leadership to really kind of come into who I am. And maybe if I went into the trades, I wouldn't have had those opportunities, and I would have missed out on some of the other things that now has prepared me for where I'm at now. So while that's a regret, I try and reframe those things and
Sure.
look at it as to not be a regret. But yeah,
It doesn't help to have regrets. We can look back and say, I wouldn't do that again. But if we have regrets, right, it just gnaws at us and it's like, you regret it. So if you regret it, it's a negative thing. Um, Patrick, what's your biggest win in life, personal or business? The biggest, like the number one thing where you say, you know what? The biggest win I had was,
man, you know, the big it's my children.
Hmm.
I mean, I got four children. My wife and I are incredibly blessed, and um, it just, man, life changing. It gets you to look at things from a different perspective, and I've been on a health journey, and one of the reasons is I think it's the number one thing I can do to grow my business. But I lost my father when he was 65, and I'm
Mm.
like, I want to be around for my children and my grandchildren for a very long time. So, man, yeah, it's really got. I know sometimes that's such a cliche, but when I really think about it, that's, man, I'm super proud.
That's generally the number one answer. It's usually family.
Yeah,
Some people get tripped up and they'll say it's their business, which is fine. But then they'll be like, well, can I change the answer, Jim? I'm like, why? Well, because it's really the family. And my wife's going to watch the podcast, so I better say family.
I gotta tell you, and my wife is absolutely amazing. I came home one day. I listened to this guy. He came into our business group, and he had a business, and his wife did not know that the house was on the line until they were sitting down with a bunch of bankruptcy attorneys.
Oh,
And
no.
he said, "Listen, if you take one thing from what I'm sharing with you today, if your house is on the line because in a line of credit or whatever, go home and tell your wife now." So I went home at the end of the day, and man, we were starting out. It was a struggle, and in the early days of buying the business and um, getting it figured out and everything. And I went home and I told her, I said, babe, I got to tell you something. I said, you know, the house I put up. And she said, well, what do I mean? I said, well, if, uh, if we lose, if I don't make it, we're going to lose the house. And she said to me, she says, do we lose the kids? I said, no, I might get emotional here. I
Yeah.
said, no. I said, no, we won't lose kids. She says, do we lose each other? I said, no, we don't lose each other. She said, well, then suck it up and go kick ass. We're fine. It's not even a discussion. And to go home and tell her that and have that response, she really centered like, boom, we got each other, we got the kids. Like, and it's been something I've been reflecting on, even though that happened, 6 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. I've really been reflecting, and I said it to my ops manager the other day. I said, "Listen, how would things be different? What could we do if y- failure was embraced
Mm.
and we just said, screw it, we're going, and knowing that you can just wake up and start over, right? Like what, like how many things I said, how many things do I not do or do I hold back on out of fear of failure? And what if failure just doesn't matter and you just go like, man, so it's kind of the thought that I'm contemplating the most right now. Because it's easy to contemplate that thought. It's a different thing to live it.
Yeah. And, we need to fail. We win more when we lose and fail. It's like building muscle. You know something about this. You have to tear it down
Yeah.
before you can build it. You can't sit around and saying, I'm going to build muscle and be positive. You actually have to go through some pain. You have to rip it up a bit, right? So we have to do
Yeah.
that in
Yeah.
life. Whether it's, going through a divorce, losing a job, losing a business, maybe losing your house. Your wife is a great partner. It reminds me of my story a bit, which I won't get into now, but having a supportive spouse is so critical when you're a business owner, because if they're looking for safety, especially in the beginning when there is often no safety, then you're going to be distracted. You may have a divorce. And if you don't get to live your dream, Patrick, because she is holding you back, you're going to resent her, and that's not going to work out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's a tough one. You are very blessed for sure. That is awesome. Superpowers. Do you have one, and what is it?
Superpowers.
What are you really good at?
You know, I would say if I had to identify a superpower, it would be remaining calm.
Mm.
In fact, the previous owner said to me one day, he said, Patrick, I've been watching you and you don't panic. And it was probably one of the greatest compliments I could have gotten. And I do have an ability. And I think, I was a volunteer firefighter. I was a rescue recovery diver. And I I've been in those environments where you have to stay calm. And I think it's just conditioned me. So I would say that it's being able to stay calm, and focused and not panic in scenarios where you otherwise might.
As a business owner, that is key, especially in the beginning. In the beginning, everything is uncertain. There is stress, sleepless nights. How am I going to pay the team tomorrow? It's payday, and we don't have the money right now.
Yeah. Oh, been there.
You're always the last to get paid,
Mm-hmm.
always.
Mm-hmm.
And some days you're like, this isn't going to work. But you're like, no, 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 no. Calm, cool, collected. Hold on. No, right? It's going to work. I've got to make it work. And it really helps when you're strong in that way. And I think that's got to be one of the top traits people would like to have if they don't have it. If you're in the military, if you're a police officer, a fireman, if you're doing anything, even an attorney, maybe, right? If you're in front of people and you have to be calm and you have to be sharp in that situation. And a lot of us panic, absolutely panic. break down, maybe even cry.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and again, in business, and especially when you have a team, they're looking to you.
Mm.
Right. And so one of the things I really become aware of, and I really have been focused on getting better at, is how I carry myself when I go into a room, I go into a meeting, because everybody's looking to me to see, and they're trying to read me. Is he positive? Is he, whatever's going on, I've got to have that, exude that confidence to the team. Because if I'm showing it, they'll have it, right? If I go in carrying every worry under the sun on my sleeve, then they'll adopt that. And
Oh, yeah.
I don't want them to have. Remember, I'm the gutter guard, right?
Yep.
So I need to give them the confidence that they're going to score strikes.
Yeah. And you have to be as strong as granite. I mean, really, you just have to
Yeah.
be solid, because if you don't have a foundation in your position as an individual, it's going to be shaky all around, most likely. And it's a huge, huge responsibility. When you were young growing up, Patrick, who was the biggest influence on you?
My father.
Tell me about it.
My dad had a business. He retreaded truck tires. I said he was into recycling before recycling was cool. And it was in Norristown, right outside Philadelphia. And he had the strongest work ethic. And he would, I remember his goal. He wanted a Cadillac Seville really badly. That was his dream car back then. And he got it. And he
Mm.
never drove it to work. And I remember I was a kid, and he's like, I've got people that come to work and bust their ass for me. And he says, they can't afford a car like this. He says, I'm not driving in and flaunting this. Right. And so there's a lot of people I know out there that would totally disagree with that approach. But it was and it was a different time, and it was a different,
Yeah.
these were like factory workers, and I was just like, man, he was so aware of that, right? And he was just an amazing human being. And obviously he's my father, so I'm going to be partial, but the advice he gave me, like the advice about showing up and show up like you're the owner, right? He gave me, I think I was 11 years old. He gave me the book. My first book he gave me was The Power of a Positive Mental Attitude. When I finished that, he gave me Zig Ziglar's See at the Top. And, because when I was a kid, I was diagnosed with a learning disability, and I had to go to the resource room and all that. And my dad was like, nah, that's, you just learn differently. Right. And so he was always there, building me up, and just how he conducted himself with other individuals. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great answer. And you're very fortunate to have grown up with your father's work ethic and his understanding of true education. I wasn't a good student either, but I was supposed to learn like everyone else because those were the rules. But no one took me aside and said, "Little Jimmy, it's okay. You just don't learn like most people. So do this instead." I was an adult by the time I figured out how to really do it, which is fine. It is what it is. Patrick, before we finish up, if you don't mind, I would like you to talk a little bit about a venture that you're working on, which is what we're doing here today, a podcast where you help other people in the trades. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, in January, I'm starting a podcast called the Tradepreneur Show.
Mm.
And it's really to promote the trades. I would like to be able to answer questions to people that are in school, don't know what they're doing, think they have to go to college, right? What is the opportunity? What's my experience? Talk to other people that are um, either currently in the trades, and how do you get better? How do you promote? How do you maximize? And not just business sense, but wellness, mindset, because so much of it starts there, right? And then it's people that are in the business. You shared earlier, people that are in the business and they're 800,000. Okay, well, let's talk about how you get to a million, 2 million, 5 million, right? But really just overall promote the trades and talk about the trades, man. It's been so good to me. I love the trades. There's a tremendous opportunity there. And man, I think that the more we can talk about it, the better. So I'm really excited to do it.
I'm looking forward to listening and watching the podcast myself. Patrick, this has been awesome. Thank you very much for joining me today. Would love to have you back. How does that sound?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
All right. Thank you, my friend. Have a great day.
Thank you.